So how did we become a three-parent family? This is a question I get a lot. I mentioned in my last video, I'm a dad now. I just celebrated my child's third birthday, which is amazing. And I'm raising my child alongside my husband and our platonic co-parent, who are the biological parents to our baby. Who's not a baby anymore. He's a big kid. They tell me all the time, big kid now. And it's kind of a funny story. It actually goes all the way back to around 2012 when I was just wrapping up filming the Mosaic documentary, which I shared on this channel. And I was really moved by that experience of documenting the stories of trans, two-spirit, and non-binary people across Canada and the US. And I realized I wanted to learn more about this kind of research, I guess. And I ended up going into sociology for an undergrad at Toronto Met University. And while I was there, I got involved with the LGBTQ Center, which led me to get involved with the Students' Union. And one day, while I was handing out flyers at the university, trying to get people to come to our events, I locked eyes with this tall, gorgeous ginger across the room, who was also there with the union. Sparks flew. And the story of all of those details will have to be in another video, but the long and the short of it is, we started seeing each other and we tried to keep it casual, but it so totally wasn't. And his name was Andrew. And around the same time, I was also volunteering with a local LGBTQ center where I met somebody named Hannah. And I knew that Hannah needed a roommate. And I knew that Andrew was looking for a new place. So I introduced the two of them, and they hit it off well enough that in early 2013, they rented a place together in downtown Toronto. I did not move in with them. I was very happy living in my little queer collective house that was just up the road. And we started all spending a lot of time together. And then around 2015, Hannah was suddenly hit with this realization, like a truck, that she needed to have a baby. Not wanted, but needed. Which is funny because she had never seen that for herself previously. And now it was like she couldn't imagine her life without it. She also did not want to wait to find like a romantic partner. And she knew she would likely do donor conception either way. And she knew some people who were donor conceived. And after talking to them, she learned that some of the people who were conceived with donors that they didn't have a relationship with found that really challenging, not to know part of their ancestry, their genetic history, any medical conditions. So she knew she wanted to work with a known donor, somebody who would be involved in their child's life, like even just tangentially. And so she was like, who do I even know who would do that? And one day, while Andrew was sweeping up the kitchen, she turns to him and she says, do you want to make a baby? He was like, yeah, maybe. And she said, if you were going to be my donor, what would you want your relationship with that child to be? And he said, well, I think I would want to be a parent to them, if you'd be open to that. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And they were both like, we should call Mark. I came over, we all sat down together. They told me about what they'd been thinking. And I was like, sure, okay. And the two of them were like, so if we make a baby together, what do you want your relationship to be like to that child? And I was like, well, I think I'd want to be a parent too. So the three of us started talking about what that would look like logistically. We agreed pretty early on that Andrew and Hannah would be the biological parents to the child. It just kind of made the most sense at the time. And I would get the opportunity to pass on my last name, which seemed like a great deal for me. And at the time, we knew a handful of other families doing this, but we weren't quite sure what the legality of it would be, what the custody arrangement would be. Would I be technically like a step parent or what? So we started going to queer family parenting classes. And we started reading books on the topic of parenting and talking to each other about our morals, our values, our visions for our child, our future together. And by around 2018, we had all finished our undergrads. I'd gotten my master's degree, and we had moved in together. I moved in with them to this little 4-bedroom rental. We had an extra roommate, shout out to Mac, who eventually was going to move out so we could have a nursery. And things were starting to feel much more real. We were starting to have like monthly meetings to talk about parenting. We were starting to write up a parenting agreement. And we had learned that we all could be on our child's birth certificate, which was very, very exciting. So we were starting to make more concrete plans, but we were still a little bit nervous. I mean, yes, we knew other queer families, but we did not know anybody doing something quite like this with a romantic couple teaming up with their platonic friend to make a child and raise them together. We just wanted to get it right. And to be real, I think, at least I was a little nervous. I was maybe procrastinating slightly. But we were coming up on when Hannah was going to turn 30, and she was getting more adamant, like, I want to do this thing. And the year she was turning 30 was 2020. So March 2020, everybody in the world literally is freaking out. And we meet as a collective and we say, look, you know what? Let's try for it. Let's just start doing it. There's literally nothing else to do. So Hannah started tracking her cycles, and we engaged in the long queer tradition of the turkey baster method. And a few months went by, and we continued to have our monthly meetings, and we continued to refine our parenting agreement, which I can make a separate video about. But nothing was really happening. So towards the end of 2020, we got involved with a fertility clinic. And we found out very quickly that even though we all recognized each other as parents, and even Ontario law recognized our equal parentage, the fertility clinic system did not. And they told us that Hannah either needed to be listed as a surrogate or Andrew needed to be listed as a donor. And it wasn't just like a paperwork issue. When you agree to that kind of labeling, all of a sudden you are subjected to things like mandatory counseling, which you have to pay for out of pocket, extra wait times, extra expenses, extra procedures. And all this after we were already feeling so stressed about having to just be in the fertility clinic in the first place. So when we said, look, that doesn't work for us, why don't you just treat us like you would treat any other family? That was when they stopped working with us. So we went to a second clinic, and Andrew and Hannah just walked in and said, look, we've been trying for a year, it's not working, and said nothing else. And the clinic agreed to work with them. Shocker. And they began to work with us doing IUI, and then eventually we had to go through IVF. And when IVF was on the table, we had a very serious talk with each other where we were like, are we still going to do this? What if it doesn't work? This is like a ton of money, a ton of time. And would we consider using a different donor or somebody else carrying the baby? And we all sat down and agreed, no matter who grew this baby, no matter where the egg came from or the sperm came from, we were going to be their parents. So we went through a round of IVF. Hannah was teaching online kindergarten while doing her shots. I was trying to do my doctoral research because I got into a PhD program during all of this. Andrew was laid off basically because COVID had shut down the events industry, and he was getting really involved with his union and trying to do some organizing on the local level. So all of us were feeling pretty exhausted, pretty beaten down, and pretty uncertain about what was going to come next. And then late spring 2021, Hannah came into my room and said, Mark, you have to see this. And we called Andrew over, and she held in her hands a positive pregnancy result. And we were all so shocked and thrilled. And all of a sudden, like, all the emotions came at once. We were like, oh my God, that's really, really happening. And then every single day after that, we were like, oh my God, is it really going to happen? We had a couple of scares. We went to the Emerge a couple times thinking that the baby wasn't going to stay, but they did. And we had an amazing baby shower, and we decorated the house in white and green because we were going to do this like forest theme for the nursery. And we got this big balloon sign that said, it's a baby, because we agreed we weren't going to gender our child, which again, our journey into gender creative parenting is its own video. And we were feeling more and more confident, like this is a thing that's going to happen. And it was going for ultrasounds. The pictures were starting to look like a person in there. We were getting secondhand baby clothes from all our neighbors who were so excited for us. And all of our families were getting really, really excited too. And then Hannah went for a midwifery appointment in early 2022. It was one of the only appointments where Andrew and I weren't there. Now, of course, we normally weren't allowed in the room because of COVID protocols, but we would often just sit in the car and wait for her to come out. But for some reason that day, we weren't there. And of course, that's the day that she calls us after her appointment and saying, hey, I'm driving myself to the hospital. Turns out I have preeclampsia. And we're like, oh my God, what? And she's like, guys, chill. It's going to be okay. The cure for preeclampsia is to have the baby. So I'm going to go be induced at the hospital. She told us to wait a little bit, let her get settled in. So we were like just running around the house, like running from room to room, trying to get our go bags together. Like we thought we were prepared, but of course we were like all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, we have nothing ready. We had like this cooler bag full of snacks. We had like 3 pillows. We have a backpack for Hannah, a backpack for us, a backpack for the baby. Our little corgi is running around our feet barking because he has no idea why we're so freaked out. Finally, she calls and says, yes, you can come now. A friend of ours comes and picks us up in their car and drives us to the hospital. And in my panic, I get out with like our entire belongings on my back and start walking the opposite direction of the hospital. And my friend, shout out to Shane, was like, the doors are in the other direction. We all find Hannah's room. We are set up like we're going to camp there for a week. Our midwife, who was amazing, actually did a bunch of advocacy for us because normally they weren't allowed to have like more than one support person in the room. But like obviously Hannah has two co-parents, and our midwife managed to get the hospital to agree to allow us to be in there. Although they only gave us one of those tiny like folding chairs as a bed. So Andrew and I like slept like a couple of sardines, and she had a 33-hour labor. Like we knew our baby was measuring big, but they were big. I thought for sure we were going to end up with like an emergency C-section. She managed to 33 hours in get into active labor. She kicked us out of the room. She was like, guys, you're just going to freak out the whole time. I need to focus. I just wanted me and my midwife and whoever's going to catch the baby. So we went and waited in the waiting room. And it was almost like this feeling like in the 1950s where the dads like sort of are like smoking a cigar in the next room, looking at the clock, wondering. Like that's how it felt almost. There was like another couple there that were just there for like a normal appointment. And we were like, we're having our baby. And they were like, good for you. This is so funny. Like I didn't really know what to do at a certain point. So I like pulled out my phone and I opened my phone and I get the email that this publishing house just picked up my book, typing to them back like, hey, thanks so much. I'm so excited to write a novel for you. I will be busy for the next little bit. And that's the book that turned into Really Cute People, for the record. But yeah, finally we get a WhatsApp message from Hannah, and it's a picture of a newborn screaming beet red on a little like table. And it says, we have a baby. And then underneath it says, it's a little Andrew. It's true, the child looked exactly like Andrew coming out. We come in and Andrew's just like sobbing, and I'm taking pictures trying to like document this moment. And there's like blood on the ground and doctors running everywhere. It turns out like our child had like some health complications coming out. They ended up having to spend like 12 hours in the NICU. But I look and the midwife is passing Hannah this baby, like just a baby, which I was like, oh my God. And she holds the baby to her chest and she looks up at us and she goes, it's River. And the story of how we picked River's name, another long one that I will save for another video. And we all gather around the bed and she passes the tiny, tiny baby to Andrew's arms, and they're so small. I mean, they're big. Like they're 9 pounds, 6 ounces, but they're still so small that he can hold them in just two hands like this. And then he passes them to me and I hold them in my arms and we do skin to skin. And I just had this feeling like the whole world was like turning on its axis. Like you feel your whole life transforming, and everybody you knew before and everything you were before, it's like a dream that you were having. And yeah, we looked at each other and all this stuff we've been planning for like 7 years was finally happening. It was real. And now we had to figure out what to do next. So like I said, we spent 12 hours with Riv in the NICU and then finally brought them home together. We filled out the birth certificate paperwork like almost right away. And just like we had heard, there was just like a drop-down box. Parent 1, title, name, whatever, parent 2, and then an option for 3 and 4. But we just the 3. Yeah, it has been a long journey since then, and it's still going. But we are absolutely dedicated to doing it together. Our plan is to raise River together, to live together throughout that process, to care for them as a group. And I was pretty nervous about being the non-bio parent in the mix, but honestly, I feel like the bond that I share with my child, maybe even because of that, is so unlike anything I've ever experienced. And when I look at them, I don't think like, oh, there's my non-bio kid. I just think, there's my baby. There's my big kid. I gotta say, for anybody out there thinking about doing a different type of family setup, something like ours, there are some serious perks. It does take a lot more negotiating. Absolutely. We still try to have like monthly meetings where we check in with each other. And it can be challenging at times, especially when you have differences of opinion or different just like habits in life and preferences. You have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and now our child is starting to weigh in as well on some of our decisions. But it also comes with a ton of benefits. I mean, Hannah and I both got a year off for parental leave. So we had 2 full-time parents at home while Andrew got to work. And even when I went back to work, then Hannah got to be at home for another 6 months while Andrew and I worked full-time. It means 3 incomes. It means 3 people available to do childcare. It means 3 extended families who are also excited to know this baby. And for all its ups and downs, it works really, really well for us. So that's the story. If you have any specific questions about our journey into parenting, please let me know, and check out this channel this time next week for another video. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Maybe our parenting agreement, our gender neutral parenting plan, Andrew and I's love story, whatever you like. Thanks for watching.